Welcome to the LifePro podcast, where today I have the pleasure of having Becky Humphrey, who is a transformational coach. Today's topic is stress, who needs it? But before we get into that, let's talk to Becky. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Mead. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. And, we talked a little bit offline about the topic. This is a very near dear subject that I deal with stress constantly, and I struggle with it. And I've learned, I've transformed myself through the years dealing with stress and using it for good and not evil. But before we get into that, why don't you start out and tell us more about yourself and your journey?
Sure. So I really got into the personal development space 7 years ago. And at the time, I was working a high-powered corporate job, very stressed out. And I had just had my Oprah moment, right? Like I had tried to leave the company. They had given me the job that was everything I had ever said I wanted, anything I'd ever said I disliked, they took away, and got this huge pay increase. And then I'm 6 months into the new role, and I realized like all my same thought patterns, all the same stress, like I'm still miserable. And that's when I realized it was me. Like
Yeah.
I'm the problem. And so I started doing different types of therapy, of coaching, of exploring like how my own childhood patterns and how my own thoughts and way of moving through the world were really affecting me. And I started it as a personal journey, and through that I did a program where I mentored others. And I thought, you know what, I'll do this because when you really teach something, you learn it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no desire to be a coach at that time. And then I found I really loved it. It was really fulfilling and it came really naturally to me. And so I started doing coaching part-time and made more space for it over the years. And it's just something that I love, that transformed my life, that I see transform my clients' life. And so I'm so excited to share it with your audience.
Great. So recently, I guess in the last few years, you moved to Costa Rica. Tell us about that. What
Yes.
prompted that major change in your life?
Yeah, I came to Costa Rica in November of 2020. It was a pandemic move, and I thought
Right.
I'd be here for just a couple of months, actually. I came on a tourist visa. And, prior to that, as I mentioned, I'd been doing all this internal work,
Right.
and I felt really different moving through the world, but my life didn't really look that different.
Mm.
And moving to Costa Rica was like this big piece of my life actually starting to look different. And I found so much joy in being here, the different pace of life. And then as the return to work date kept moving out into the future, I kept staying, and I built a whole life for myself down here. And I'm really happy to be here.
That's great. So our topic today, as we mentioned, was stress. Um, what is stress? Like, how do we define stress? What does that mean?
I mean, there's lots of different ways to define stress, but the way I like to think about it is it's both a physiological response. It happens in our body, and everyone knows the feeling of being stressed, and all of a sudden their hands and feet are sweaty, they're red in the face. But it also is a way that we can be mentally in different loops and keep repeating the same thought patterns. So it really affects all parts of our being when we're in stress.
Mhm.
And sometimes stress is positive and sometimes it's not.
Right. When is stress a good thing as a
So stress
coach?
can be, yeah, I think stress can be a good thing. Um, we usually call this eustress, and eustress is typically characterized by a couple of different things. One, it's acute, right? So it happens quickly and then it ends.
Mhm.
So there's this thing that happens, your body has its stimulus, it has its response, it peaks, and then you're able to come back down into a regulated state. That's a very crucial piece of good stress, is like not getting stuck in the on position.
Mhm.
And then also, it's usually characterized by having adequate resources or support for that event. And a couple of examples of like good stress are exercise, we think about going to the gym, that's stressing the body out. We're actually creating the opportunity for the body to heal and repair stronger. Or public speaking, when you get the opportunity to go in front of an audience and share, that's stressful for most people. But usually afterwards, you feel really excited about what you've done and what you've shared with the world. Or I have a big life event coming up. I am 9 months pregnant, and having a baby is a stressor, but it's a good kind of stress, right? I'm excited for her arrival.
Yeah.
And it's going to be challenging for a period of time, and it's also going to be really exciting, and I have support. So it's a good stress.
Right. So on the other end, there is bad stress where, somebody's in a very difficult situation, or there's prolonged stress in mind, and from personal experience, it causes me to have certain symptoms or certain medical issues because of the extreme stress. Affects my clarity and the ability to make proper decisions. Why does that happen, and what else happens when you have extreme stress?
Yeah, so chronic stress, right, which is when we get stuck in that on position, is really detrimental for us, right? Our bodies are not designed to be in a chronic stress state. Right. And when we're in a stress state, our body is designed to go into fight or flight or freeze. And those are really useful in the moment, but they're not a useful place to live from, because the body is shunting energy and resources from other places that we need, like our digestive system, like our ability to heal and repair, like all of the parts of our brain to be active. When we are extremely stressed out, parts of our brain actually shut off.
Right.
And so if you've ever had the experience of having a stressful conversation with someone, and then a couple of hours later, thinking of all the amazing comebacks that you could have said, there's a reason you couldn't think of them in the moment, right? Because your prefrontal cortex actually turned off in that hyper stress state.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the chronic stress of like modern life that is really detrimental for us.
Definitely been there, and really worked on like helping. I've done like breath work, meditation, a lot of different things just to help reduce my stress. What are the other things that you recommend people to do to reduce stress and make better decisions?
There's so many amazing tools for reducing stress, and I would say it definitely goes beyond vacations and self-care, although those are great, but they're not a cure for chronic stress. Usually we're stressed out because we are doing too much, or we're not living life in accordance with our values. So learning to set boundaries is a really important part of stress management, but also learning where your body goes and where your patterns are in stress, so that you can catch yourself a little bit earlier in that process is very useful. Building the awareness, and then learning ways that you can regulate yourself to come back to a calm place is really the name of the game. And there's as many tools as you can think of. Sometimes it's playing music, sometimes it's breathing longer, nice long exhales. Sometimes it's moving. When I'm super stressed, there's too much energy in my body, and actually trying to take a slow breath isn't that helpful. I need to get some of that energy out of my body first before I can then come to the down regulating part.
Yeah. So the first step is being mindful, right? Some people live with extreme stress as a way of life, and they don't even realize it till they really take a step back and look at themselves and understand, hey, this stress is impacting my quality of life, and it's impacting my decisions and my overall happiness. First understanding that you have this issue, and then figuring it out and using these tools that we all have to help us reduce our stress at the end of the day, you know, we all have problems. It's just how we respond to them is what differentiates all of us, and causes us to be successful in life and have a better relationships. So definitely, I'm glad we're talking about it here so people can be a little bit more cautious of how much stress they're putting on themselves and their mind, body, and gut. So we talked about the window of tolerance and the somatic response of the body. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, what that is, and how that can help reduce stress and build resilience?
Yeah, so the window of tolerance is a concept that has been super useful to me and to my clients. And basically, what it is a range in which your body has the appropriate amount of stimulus. And we can think of stimulus as energy or charge in the body, right? It's just you're able to be with what's happening and have access to your whole brain. And then sometimes we pop out of our window of tolerance. And we usually, with stress, we tend to have the tendency to pop out to the top. And this is called hyper arousal. And in a state of hyper arousal, you know, this is when you get all of those classic stress response symptoms. Your breathing changes, you are sweaty, your face might get red, your digestion gets thrown off, right? So it's a too much energy place.
Yeah.
We also can pop out of the window of tolerance below, and this is hypoarousal. You're basically too low. And here it's really hard to take action, maybe kind of depressed. It's hard to get out of bed. Digestion gets very slow, right? So depending on which way you pop out of your window of tolerance, it's really learning how to track what's happening in your body and what's happening emotionally for you so that you can catch it earlier.
Right.
So I know I talked about, for me, when I get stressed, right, the first thing I notice is my hands and feet get sweaty. And if I can catch myself at the sweaty hands and feet stage, then I can make a different choice. I can be like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit stressed right now. I can start to let myself know, like, am I actually okay in this moment? Like, yeah, I'm actually good in this moment. Yeah. I'm talking to my friend Omid. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I can start checking in with myself. I can start doing the things that I know help me feel less stressed, like taking deeper breaths, moving some of that energy out of my body. Right. Now, if I ignore that and I let my body just go where it would normally go, it's going to progress for me from sweaty hands and feet to maybe some pain in my stomach, to shorter breathing, like up in my chest, to my throat feeling super duper tight, to a red face. And then, you know, parts of my brain are going to shut off and I'm going to be in a pure survival response. Right. So learning what that pattern is for you in your body gives you like those little early warning signs that like, ooh, something's happening. And that's where you can bring in your tools to come back to a place of regulation. So that's why I find the window of tolerance and bringing in the body super powerful.
That's brilliant. That really helps us conceptualize the whole, you know, situation around stress and how the different levels can affect us in different ways. So that's very powerful, and I thank you for that. So I've been to Costa Rica many, many years ago, and everywhere you go is pura vida, you know, pure life. And I feel like there's less stress in Costa Rica. Like people are just more relaxed, and the way of life is just more easygoing and free flowing. And how much does that help affect our level of stress? Does our environment reduce our stress, like impact how we feel?
We are definitely affected by our environment, both the physical environment and the people we hang out with, right? We co-regulate with others. Right. And of course, we're affected by the culture that we live in. And that's something that I really loved about coming here to Costa Rica is, you know, I'm initially from the Northeast. That's where I was born and raised and where I worked and lived before this. And the energy of the Northeast is very much a go, 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 go kind of energy. And the energy of Costa Rica is far more of a, live and let live,
Yeah.
less consumeristic,
Yeah.
just very, just letting you be in nature.
Yeah.
And that has definitely helped me. And that's part of why I choose to stay here, is because my body feels better
Yeah.
here than it does
So
in the Northeast.
not all of us have the luxury of being able to move. So, like, and, obviously we're surrounded by certain situations where it's, being parents or having employees, or having relationships that might not be ideal, might be a little bit toxic, or in a way affect us negatively. How does, obviously that affects our level of stress. What advice do you have for people that are maybe in these difficult situations? Outside of breathing, but maybe, obviously I would say get rid of any toxic situation. If you have a toxic friendship that provides stress, or there's any type of business relationship, or you work, your boss is giving you stress, obviously find ways to get out of that situation. But is there any advice that you have for people that are in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've highlighted a big piece of it, which is like if you're in a super toxic situation, you need to get out of it,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes we're bringing our history into the current moment, and our reaction is kind of outsized relative to what's actually happening. And so it's like this question of, is this a pattern that keeps repeating in my life? In which case you may have the problem that I found right early
Right.
on. But the problem was me repeating patterns and bringing that view. The sunglasses I had on were coloring the world for me. And the good news is, if you learned it, you can unlearn it, right?
Yeah.
You can unlearn your patterning. And being willing to have difficult conversations is a really important life skill that I think a lot of us are afraid, right? A
Yeah.
lot of us have people pleasing
Yeah.
tendencies and are afraid to bring our truth, and are afraid to say, like, this isn't working,
Yeah.
or I really care about you and this needs to change. So
Yeah.
it's like learning to set boundaries, learning to have difficult conversations in a compassionate and regulated way, I think is such an underutilized way to reduce stress.
Yeah. And I find that a lot of times, I'm sure people are in difficult situations, but perception becomes reality, right? Like sometimes we stress over things that we shouldn't stress over, and we need to be cautious of that like, when things get bad, we have to reflect on how bad is this really? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if we have our health and we're still alive, like, hey, we're good, right? We shouldn't stress about it. And some people, I'm a victim of it as well, tend to stress over things that are really not that important, and they impact me so severely that I make these poor decisions and I don't make the right decision. So, obviously going back to being mindful of your situation, and using the techniques to be more cautious of your situation, and just, hey, pura vida, keep going. It's a part of life. We all go through it, and use stress as fuel for better than for worse. That's what I've learned through the years, and I've learned through our discussion today. And I will do my part to help reduce my stress so I can have a better life, which is what LifePro is about. So my next question to you is the question I asked all my guests: is what is one thing that you want to teach the world?
It's really this piece that you get to be the one who chooses how you respond to life, and you get to create your life. If you learned it, you can unlearn it. And yes, you have decades of practice of being in your patterns and responding in that way. And you can learn a new way,
Yeah.
right? You can really learn to embody
Yeah.
what feels good, to create a life that feels amazing. You can live
Yeah.
in a more regulated place, and life is going to continue to be stressful, right?
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can handle it in a
Yeah.
different way when you have those tools.
Yeah. Have an open mind, have the right mindset and believe in yourself, believe in that you can make the changes and you can have the responses required in life to get through it and have a better life. So I love what you said, and definitely something I will take away today from it. Is there a book that inspired you and that, you know, that helped you maybe mold your mindset to who you are today?
You know, a book that really helped me understand people, and that's a framework I use within my coaching, is called The Five Personality Patterns by Stephen Kessler. And there's really like these 5 ways that we respond when we're feeling overwhelmed. And they tie back to different childhood developmental stages. And for each pattern, you can learn like what they need to feel safe, how they respond when they're in a threat, how to communicate better with each personality pattern. And I know I used to think that the way I like to be communicated with was the way that everyone wanted to be communicated with. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize that, in fact, like that was actually very annoying to other people who run other personality patterns. So that book has been really eye-opening, both in terms of developing compassion and understanding for other people, but also in communicating more effectively and helping other people heal.
I love it. How can people get in touch with you or follow you? I know you're going to be busy in the next few weeks, but how can people follow you?
So the best places to find me are on Instagram and LinkedIn, and I will give you the links for all of that, and that will be in the show notes for people.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your time today. I had a lot of fun. You know, I know that doing these things are fun for me, so it helps reduce my stress. And obviously, everybody kind of finds things as an outlet to reduce their stress, whether it's exercise or hobbies, and, you know, finding that real balance in life. And, you know, what I've learned today is that not all stress is bad, that we, you know, we need to regulate the stress and just be very mindful of how we're feeling, and use our tools that are readily available to us to reduce our stress and have a better quality of life. Thank you so much for your time. I had a lot of fun today. I hope you did. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of insight and value in the content that we provided today. So I hope you enjoyed doing it.
Yes, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for having me, Amin.
It was great. Good luck with the baby. I know you'll need it.
Thank you.